Hi, welcome so much to this special episode of the Scenic Route podcast. I mostly super excited, parts incredibly nervous because I brought Nadia Gabrielle back from season 2 to celebrate the last episode of season 2 and to do something quite interesting today. We're turning the tables. So, meaning as the Scenic Route podcast is non-scripted anyway, but I usually have a rough idea of what we're going to talk about. Today, I have absolutely none because I'm giving over the mic to Nadia and I have absolutely no fucking idea what's going to happen. So buckle up. It will be a ride.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. This is a huge honor. I didn't take it lightly. I was preparing into the night last night. I was like, I better not mess this up.
There is no way you could, Nadia. There's no way you could.
There's always a little leave button in the little corner of Zoom. Like, leave me.
Sorry, the connection is really bad. I cannot hear you. I'm frozen.
Well, you know what? This is not so much of a departure for me because I don't know if you know this, but this was my first ever job. My first ever job was, well, not quite this because I was interviewing rock stars, but I was a music journalist.
Me.
Sorry. But this is
what are you saying? I'm not a rock star, which is cool. It's cool. It's cool. Okay, I can live with that. It's okay.
We can talk about this later. So, when I was preparing this really brought me back to like my early days of, poring over lyrics and then trying to like find questions that not everyone else would ask. So, you would find you would arrive at that one little tidbit that they would share. So that's exactly what we're doing today. That's what you're in for.
Oh my goodness. My heart is pounding.
I love you're just nonchalantly sipping your I feel like you're pretty relaxed.
Saffron tea.
Ooh, nice.
I'm new to the game and everyone with a Middle Eastern background is giving me like the eye roll of like, yeah, sure.
We've known about this.
Yeah. We're known about this.
We've known this.
But it's delicious. It's amazing. I love it.
Enjoy. Well, let's start with your podcast, Jen. 2 seasons. That is amazing. That's really amazing. I would love to hear, and your listeners would love to hear. Tell us one thing you've learned, one thing that surprised you, and one thing you would do completely differently if you were to start again fresh.
Okay, learned, impressed, differently. Okay. Oh, I'd say what I learned is, well, first and foremost, the Scenic Route podcast is a heart and passion project. Mm-hmm. Like it has not been come to life as like, oh, this could be a way of getting new leads. Like, I mean, sure, it can work like that, and it is a vessel of my personal branding, but it's just it goes way beyond that. So what I learned is how all the people I talk to, and they're all women or identifying as women, we got us so much similar shit to deal with. Regardless of our backgrounds, or regardless of our privilege, we struggle with a lot of similar things. So it's really about like, that's actually some structural shit. And it made me really, reread Meat Market by Lauren Penny, just because, like, we're just, dear Lord, why we still have to talk about certain things in 2023. So that's something I've learned, that there's just so much going on structurally, especially in the online business world, that we really got to change. Like, we're just no time for this bullshit. And that the other thing is that we're although we, like, some of the guests I've talked to, they have great communities of their own. But we're all somewhat lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, if you've built a community, that doesn't necessarily mean you yourself are in a community amongst peers. So with most of it, I felt this kind of loneliness of like, okay, where are my people at? And interestingly enough, that's also kind of one of the reasons why Scenic Route came into being. I'm like, I know there are great people who are doing their business in a way that lights them up, supports their business, but who are not like shouting it off the rooftop all the time. So where they're at. So that was kind of like a learning. The difficult, like what I would change. Oh no, we first had what surprised me, right? I all the clients I like all the clients, all the guests I had on so far, they all came either through my personal network, which the small minority, like I'd say 90% of all the people I talked to so far are people I have not known priorly. And they all came from one Facebook group posting of me saying, look, this is what I'm doing. If this resonates, get in touch. And it surprised me, how everyone was just really willing and to talk about their personal story openly. And we had some guests on who, went through really hard times and shared it candidly and openly and with so much grace. So that surprised me that this was resonating as strongly as it did. What would I do differently? I reflected on the podcast a lot. I'm not sure if I would actually do things differently. Like, I know, for example, a lot of people try to use podcasts as a audience growth tool, which is cool. Part of me is also doing that. But I mean, that would have required me going after people who have way bigger audience than I do. And some do, but a lot of them don't. And then I would have, probably would have said I have to exclude those people who have a smaller audience than I do. And I'm like, fuck this shit. I still want to talk to these people. So I don't know if I would do it differently, but it was just things that I reflected upon that, depending where you're coming from, doesn't make much sense. Or some episodes would have been better off with more structure, depending on who is the guest on the podcast. I also realized that while this conversational style works really great for me and makes it really engaging and as if you're listening in on a conversation, me being super engaged in a conversation can lead to third person listeners. It can be a lot to kind of take in.
How do you mean that?
I got this feedback a couple of times where not in a sense of, oh, you don't let them finish, you're not giving them the space, but it's they oh, it felt kind of hard to focus on the message of one of it, maybe if in the sentence of a guest, when we're sometimes in the middle of the sentence bouncing other ideas off. And again, I take in this feedback, I value it highly, but I don't know if I would do it differently or if I could, because that's just me. That's just how I'm going to be on my podcast. Otherwise, I would have to be, a different variation of myself that probably would not make that podcast being as much fun.
And I think as well, you're a self-projected projector, which is also why, I remember when you first told me you were starting a podcast, I was like, yes, this is going to be so good for you. I love that you're going to have this outlet, because when we talk about these, the centers in human design, like your defined throat just needs to have that outlet because the pressure is building. And tell me if you feel this way, but the way as a guest, obviously I don't have my own podcast, but the way that I look at it as a guest is like, I'm being invited into someone's living room. Like I'm being invited into Jen's living room. We're going to do things her way, kind of thing. And for us, this is like, we're good with that conversational style. But I think it can be, you can see it as an adventure. You can see it as, how interesting. Like when I go to my friend's place, like, how do they do it? Nice. Like, I'm just going to flow with that. It's not like I come in with an agenda of, well, this is the structure I really prefer.
Agreed. Like in terms of the process, I always do like a short pre-call with guests. So we're kind of like getting a vibe for each other. And I'm also being very transparent, especially at the beginning when there were no episodes to listen to, so they could get an idea. I told them, look, this is going to be a conversation. There will be no questions. Like, except the first one, like, it's who are you?
Yeah. What's your deal?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's going on? What's going on there? There's none. And if that's just how it is. And I mean, I had people who did not sign, who I invited to come on an episode, who did not decide, who were like, no, not a fit. I mean, I tracked all the numbers because obviously that's part of my brain too. I mean, there you go. 77% of all the people who had a pre-call with me booked an actual recording date.
I love that you've just got the stats like ready. Love that. Keep going. Tell us.
Yeah. So there were obviously some where I felt, okay, that's not gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
Or
and what do you do? Are you like, actually, it's like dating, right? Like you had the first date and it's like, I'm not feeling this. Like, do you just straight out say it?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. To some extent, usually when I feel it's off, it's also that they're feeling that it's off, and then it almost feels like I'm doing them a favor and like I'm taking the pressure off of them to decline. Right, like I am actually like doing the brave thing, leading the way and saying, look, I don't, at this time, with what I have envisioned for this podcast to be, I don't think this is going to be an episode that will be fun and enjoyable for us both. Please, if you see it this way, then like no hurt feelings whatsoever. If you disagree with me, like fine too. Like, please feel free to keep in touch. Like, I mean, this is nothing personal. It just didn't feel like a good fit. And none of them were like, fucking bitch. They were all like, I mean, some obviously didn't write back, but then that's always a good sign. And then like someone like, yeah, like I felt it was, there was no vibe. So
and good for you for having that tough conversation. Like I would, even if it stings maybe a little bit on the other side, I would think like, wow, that is like a grown-up with capacity who can give it to me straight, and we don't have to do that like awkward sort of mutual ghosting. That's like weird. We can just be adults about this.
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't want to like, what would be the alternative, right? You feeling not really great about it. I'm not really feeling great about it. We'll still meet up. We hang out at an hour.
Through with it because no one can speak up. That's terrible.
It would be super awkward to have like an hour-long conversation that probably no one would listen to in its entity anyway, because they're like, what's going on?
The vibe is off. Yeah.
And then we just wasted an hour of our time doing, I don't know. So as hard as it is at times, and I mean my people pleasing force is like gracefully telling the truth and letting them know like this season it's just I don't see it working.
This is a good segue. I had another question about that I feel like kind of goes into this. I was wondering if there was, or if you'd be willing to share, if there was any sort of inner resistance that you had to overcome in the lead up to starting the podcast. Because I've kind of seen a couple clients go through this process where, you know, eventually there's something that comes up, and I'm going to let you tell your story. It's different for everyone. If you feel like it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know. I'd probably really ties back to what you said before. Like there was just so much pressure built up in my throat at one point. It was just like, blah. No, but I don't know. I just, for the longest time, I always kind of felt like, I don't know. I don't think podcast is my medium. Although I enjoy listening to podcasts, I am not like a podcast listener fanatic. I'm not listening to 4 podcasts a week or something like that. But I don't know. I always felt like, okay, there's nothing I can contribute to the conversation. And that was partly because I was focusing way too much probably around the whole branding thing. Like, oh, let's do a podcast on branding. I'm sure it could have, but that, I don't know, probably would have focused much more about the strategic bits and whatever, which I thought like, well, I don't know, I probably could do a season and then what? I didn't see a future, or just any kind of long-term format where, I don't know, I wouldn't get bored. So I thought, hey, it needs to be something else. So it's like, I don't know. So I kind of put it back again. And then the Scenic Route, the idea of the Scenic Route, I don't remember exactly, but I remember it was in the idea of the Scenic Route, like the concept of the Scenic Route, not the podcast, but the entire visual imagery of the Scenic Route. It came when I was in a workshop, in a 1-1 call with Emma Natter, who was my business coach at the time, during her Emma Natter School of Creative Entrepreneurship. And we were talking 1-1, and then I don't know, suddenly I said something was like, you know, it's kind of like all the best memories you have from your travels are the one where you took like the path, the Scenic Route, you know, that's where all your memories were. And then I was just like marinating and monologuing the Scenic Route for like 3 minutes. And Emma just sat there, and then she was like, and I'd like, okay, I got a brief at one point. She was like, so I got a segue in now. And like, there's something there. I don't know yet what it is, but this is something. And I'm like, now that I actually breathing again and thinking about it, yes.
Your G center works, right? Like there was no agenda. This just came out.
No, there was no agenda. That was just really in the moment. That was just kind of like the imagery that came was like, yeah, we're all kind of like on the Scenic Route.
If we can allow ourselves to be.
Yes, right. And I mean, it's also not saying that the Scenic Route is applicable for everyone. It is not, because it's hard. I don't know. The other route, the Hustle Highway, is also hard, but different, and it just suits one type of person more than the other. And yeah, so that's like how the entire concept came to be. Yeah. And then I was talking with my business mentor, Jessica Ely. I'm like, you know, this sounds like a podcast. Then that was like on Voxer, like, you know, like all the best Voxer messages are when you leaving like 8 or 10 minute Voxers to your mentor.
No, I don't know that.
Okay. Then it's just a me thing. But basically, like most of my Voxers to Chaz were like me telling her something. That's probably, then again, you explained that from my HD perspective, but I just kind of like need her as a sounding board.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm telling her something, and then at the end I'm like, that was super helpful. Like, okay, cool. I'm just like, go on,
Yeah.
do that. And she
Yeah,
just writes back, okay, you're welcome.
that's exactly how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also told her, like, okay, this is gonna be a podcast. Like, I'm gonna do a podcast. And then again, as you, similar, but not with an HD, like she was like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. I'm like, well, like, where is like the element de surprise? Where is like the ooh? She's like, well, there's not really a surprise there. And I'm like, thank you. So everyone apparently knew that I should do a podcast before I did. But yeah,
We're all
that's
just like waiting for you to
no, like she's usually quite bright, but that's not taking
get
a
there.
really long time.
No,
So
I was just
yeah.
remember being so excited and just looking back now, right? It's been a while and I just love, I mean, with every creative project, it's you have created something, you have built something where there was nothing. Like I remember that first message, you were like, hey, I'm gonna do this. Do you want it some point beyond this? I'm like, yeah, obviously. Like there nothing was there, like nothing had occupied that space. And now look, now here we are, 2 seasons under your belt. You've been doing like, isn't that always so fulfilling to look back? It's like I made this. Like this wasn't there. I know this sounds so dumb when I say it, but every creative project is like that, right?
Yes, and that's why I don't know. It's always nice if you're a service provider, you're actually doing something with your hands. For
Like
example, like I don't know, working with clay
yeah.
or paint or whatever, because you're actually seeing
The thing.
what
Yeah.
you're doing. Yeah, I don't know. I had that very early on of like I did an apprenticeship as a desktop publisher back in the days. So I remember like the first time I did something on my computer and I sent it to the printers, and then I would be like, whoa, this is like the book or the magazine I did the layout for. Whoa. And I'm like, oh, it's so good. So I don't know, that left an imprint on me for sure. That's like, ooh, it's so cool to actually create something tangible, which is hard, right? Because we're often so much in a world of non-tangibles, which is also cool, but it's
like
great
you've got your body of work somewhere that's like cataloged. That's like you've got this, right? It's like this is what I've done. You can see the volume growing as you keep. Whereas often, I think in our industry, it's more intangible. It's kind of just floating around, sort of the ethers. You know, there's something I did here. There's something I did here, but it's less like this is the catalog. This is
the combined volumes of Jennifer Wallen.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Tell me, speaking of podcasts, what is one podcast you love to listen to? Can be anything, doesn't have to be business, whatever. Like you take a walk, what do you put on?
That's a good question. Which I there's some I like fall in and out of love with. One I really like for a longer period of time now is We Can Do Hard Things by Glenn Doyle. Like it's a classic, but some of our episodes are like, ooh, yes. I like The Second Life. I like Evil Genius with Russell Kane. Then how's it called? It's called Telling Everybody Everything, I think, with Catherine Ryan. She's just hilarious. I'd say those are the top of my mind. Yeah, I think those are the ones I listen to most. And I think one, but it's I don't think they're doing new episodes now, but it was with Jen Carrington and Sarah Tasker, Letters from a Hopeful Creative. That was also a really, really beautiful podcast.
Okay, I'll look those up. I only know like Thank you. I wanna you kind of touched on it, and I kind of want to swerve into the JW origin story a little more, or you know, just more of what you do and to situate yourself in that. And so your area of expertise and what you help your clients with is branding and rebranding. And I know that you have got lots of different backgrounds and influences that are coming together, such as sociology and NLP and many other things that you've studied that you're amazing at. And I would love to hear, was reflecting on this yesterday. I have a branding background as well. And, you know, one of the things I've kind of struggled with that is the simplified concept that kind of floats around that people often have, especially in the corporate world. But it's kind of everywhere. It's like, oh, cool. So, you know, maybe we have like the this and this department and they do all the things. And then the branding is the thing that happens at the very end. And we just slap a nice font on it and a nice color palette. And it's kind of like this afterthought of, oh yeah, now we need a logo, or like now we need, you know, this.
Yeah. We just need a logo.
Exactly. That's what, right. And that is not all that branding is. And it's kind of like branding happens in its own silo, and it's largely concerned with what something looks like on the outside, which is sadly how many companies still do things. And I'd love to hear your take on that. And especially where in the process of maybe building a business or you know, building a product portfolio or service, does branding come into play? Like, where would you ideally want someone to come and hire you? Because I would imagine it's not at the very end when they're like, here's all we've got, and now we need
please no, please,
nice,
yeah,
right?
please don't, please do not.
Yeah.
Also don't, I once had actually a case where they're like, oh, just in the logo. I'm like, yeah, well, then they were actually like, oh, then
with that. Yeah,
sorry,
you go to a graphic designer with that.
Yeah, well, they ended up going on Fiverr, and then I think like 8 months back later, they were like, you know, like, can we like rebrand, aka turning shit into gold? Wait, what happened like 6 months ago?
All the stuff that makes no sense. That's
I'm like, no, we cannot.
Yeah.
No, I respectfully decline. We cannot. I mean, I do have certain magic tricks up my sleeve, but that ain't it. No. It's not at the beginning. Like, it's so interesting that, to me, I'm like, why are we still having this conversation? Like, obviously it's needed. But I'm like, really? Like, yeah, no. But in all fairness, and I get it, it's confusing because you have, like, on a corporate side, you have sales and you have marketing, and then you have sales budget and marketing budgets, and then every now and then you have some like a branding person who is like neither here nor there, but it's actually telling them what's going wrong. So I was always very popular on corporate back in my corporate days. Ooh, everyone loved me.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, in all fairness, branding is, to some extent, branding is not something you can outsource.
Yeah.
Right. When I'm on pre-calls with, like, regardless if they're like large corporations, I'm talking with like a buyer person there, or I'm talking to single entrepreneurs, single service providers, whatever, there are certain things I cannot do for you. You have to know who you are. You have to know what you're good at and what you want to do. Yes, I can offer you tools to discover that, because it's hard to see that sometimes for yourself. And yes, an important job of branding is to hold up a mirror so you can see yourself fully. But at the end of the day, if I'm showing you 4 different design directions for your new rebrand, and I can give you loads of brilliant arguments, pro and contra, for each and one of those design routes, you got to be the one who is like, this is me, or this is more me than version 2, 3, and 4.
Because in the end, it needs to hold up, right? Like, when you step back out, this is still this person's business.
Yes.
This still needs to.
I want it to be this person's business, right? That's why I left branding agencies, because what happened there is
you pop in and out.
And the thing is, well, you pop in and out, but not necessarily. What I do now, I work with a client until they kind of not need me. They will need me again, maybe in 6 or 12 or 18 months, whatever. But I mean, the agency model, recurring revenue, yoo-hoo. So what do? You create like an amazing looking brand identity. Ooh, fancy, like all the bells and whistles, knowing quite well that the client will
They're gonna
never
be dependent on you for every single redesign and every single thing.
every little marketing application, from their YouTube banner to their flyer to their business cards to whatever, right? And that's how they generate a lot of recurring revenue, because they kind of like attach the clients to them. And I've been there, I've done that. Yes, there were some great brand identities, but I mean, well, didn't feel very ethical. But so I'm kind of like, that's not what I want, right? We got to find a way that feels like you can keep this up. It has to, so when you go, as you've said before, when you go out, it still has to be you.
Yeah.
And as branding is something organic, something that keeps on growing, it's not a done and forget kind of thing. You have to be able to keep it up, and that looks different to everyone. Some people have hired help, have people in their teams who can do Canva designs and whatever. And for others, it looks more like bootstringing it and be like, hey, you know, how can we do it? And they still got a great brand because it works with them, right, in their favor. So that's to that. And when regarding of like, when is the best time to think about branding? I mean, it's always the earlier the better, but not at the beginning. Like, I'm not a turn down client or people who are interested in working with me who are starting out. Why? Because first, before you need a brand, you actually need to know if what you want to do is viable. Right? You don't know. Maybe you have a brilliant idea, but you just don't know, right? And
opposites.
I don't know, what is it? 70% of all new businesses fail because of no client market fit. You just don't know if this idea is viable. You don't know if it's going to generate any revenue. You don't know if you're actually doing it.
Exactly.
You like the idea of yourself doing it, but when you're actually doing it, different story.
Absolutely.
So you got to do it. You have to be in the trenches for a while and to be like, okay, I see some traction. I see this thing is working. I got a few people here and there who love it.
Yeah.
But I'm not getting, I don't know, I want to get more people. I don't know how to get those people. So that's a moment where you're like, maybe you should think about branding. Or another is really when you want to start scaling. Where you're really like, okay, branding is just one of those, I don't know, it's just kind of like the skeleton that just helps you walk straight, walk upright. It can just hold you together. And that's why branding then should come before marketing and before sales. It's not the other way around, even if marketing and sales people like tell you so. Right? Because if that's from my time when I did paid digital marketing. I don't know, 80% of the time when your Google ads are not performing as they should be, or your Facebook ads aren't as performing as they should be, it's not necessary. It mostly wasn't I don't know, that something in your ad account wasn't properly set up. Yes, that can happen, but mostly it was just not a fit. And why? Because your messaging was off, because your targeting was off. And why was it off? Because you hadn't done your branding work
done in the back end to figure out.
Yes, and that work was branding work. So most of the time when clients had like bad performing paid campaigns, we're actually like, oh, we got to talk about the strategy. No, we got our strategy, it's fine. Well, it's clearly not working.
And it all goes hand in hand, right? I feel like with branding, it's kind of like watercolor, like it goes into different areas of, as you called it, the skeleton of the business. It's not like its own little drawer. Let's figure this out and then close the drawer again and jump to the other thing. It like really goes into the different corners and nooks and crannies.
Yes, absolutely. And it's seeping through everything you do, right? And so that's why like it's very similar to, and that's why I kind of like realized, oh, okay, I want to get a certification in NLP, because like working on your brand, working on your mindset is the same kind of like invisible structure that keeps your business together.
Right.
And you kind of like need to work on both, maybe sometimes at the same time or in tandem, but they both require work and upkeep. And it needs to be a combination of both. And you also, and you said that brilliantly and eloquently a lot of times, you also need the capacity to build the capacity to then
To go along with
hold all of this, right? Because otherwise it just goes poof.
Yeah. And it's an individual process for everyone. Some people can go really far with just strategy, and then they get to their capacity ceiling and it's like, okay, I can't go further than here. For some people, it's kind of like one step here, one step here, one step here. Like I've seen this play out.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's absolutely individual, and so goes the and so is also like the strategy, right? I mean, why would, and I mean that goes for you and me. Why would anyone book a, and not necessarily for the strategy? You can Google how many times you should post on social media, or you can go on ChatGPT and ChatGPT will tell you, right? Like, I mean, it's more about how to kind of like actually get it.
How can you actually sustain that? How can you, if on the capacity side, how can you overcome the inner resistance that you have to doing the thing that you already know you need to be doing? Because strategy isn't reinventing the wheel. It's going to be pretty similar for everyone. Like, you know, we can have some adjustments along the way with human design and so on. But in the end, it's like, you already know what you need to do. Why aren't you doing this?
Yes. And that's what I kind of like in my coaching calls. My favorite question to ask my clients is always like, you know, when we're like talking about, I always kind of like, well, what do you want to do? Right? Like maybe you have this new product. What do you want to do to launch it? Yeah. Then the first thing they say is kind of like the bells and whistles, 30-day launch plan, whatever. Right? And then I'm like, okay, let me rephrase. What are you actually willing to do?
In the real world that you actually have
to and then it's like
by. Yes.
Right? And then we have to come away from, oh, I have to do all those things to be successful. And that's to some extent, vulnerability alert, also my issue, right? Like, I mean, I know, and I have bought entire programs because someone showed me a Google Doc and was like, this is what I want to do. I'm like, I'm in. Sure. Let's do it. Whatever. But at the same time, that goes back when I was in a mastermind. I think it was 3 years ago now. And I was struggling with postpartum depression and everything going on after giving birth. And I launched like a mini offer. And it sold donut, not a thing. But I did quite a few things for it. Yeah. Like all that I felt were in my capacity at the time. And my mastermind coach at the time, she was just like, well, I told her like, okay, the launch didn't work. This is what I did. It didn't work. Okay, yes, I feel sad about it, but like, it is what it is. Cool. Yeah. And she was actually like, well, don't you think that was kind of lazy? And I'm like,
excuse me.
Yeah, shit. And then that was hugely fucking triggering.
I'm so sorry.
Because everything that I am is not lazy. And or like anything I've ever worked towards was to not be perceived as lazy. Anyway, there's a whole other episode on that. But so I was like, okay, well, thank you. But yeah, so that was a great mastermind.
Oh wow. Oh man, it reminds me of when I started teaching yoga. I've been a yoga teacher for I'm so bad at math. Like taking me way too long to figure this out. Many years.
That means you're too old, because otherwise, if you're
there's too many years.
Yesterday when I was like 21.
No, well, I was like 21, but when was that? Yeah, no, I mean,
it was last year, Nadia. It was last year.
That's right. That's right.
So you're not, but you're younger than me, so I whatever.
Am I? I never know people's
I'm
age.
sure. I'm pretty sure.
I'm 34. I'm 34.
But, oh dear Lord. You're greenhorn. No, I'm also have to do the math now. I'm actually what is 2023? Oh yeah, dear Lord. I'm turning 20. No, not 20.
It's hard.
I'm turning 39 this year.
Oh, amazing. So when I was studying to start teaching yoga, this was 2009. I think I started. And I remember one lesson that I've taken with me way beyond the yoga shala and the yoga teaching space. I remember my teacher, Daniel, who's extremely insightful. He said, as a teacher, when you're in the room, you have to always figure out what the person needs. But this was in the days when we would still do lots of physical adjustments. This is handled a little bit differently sometimes in studios these days. But back in the day, like, you would go up to people and touch them and kind of help them into the pose more deeply. And I love how he said, there's going to be someone in that class that's like pushing themselves. And they're just like, I can go deeper. Like I can stay in this down dog and I can get my heels down and I can do this. And this is the person that you're going to approach really gently. And you're just going to put a hand on their upper back. And with that gesture, just tell them it's okay to ease off a little. You're fine. You're doing great. Yes. And then you've got a person next to them that's kind of just like phoning it in. That's like, I know I should like have my hips square when I have this like three-legged dog, like right leg up in the air. I know that the hips should be square, but it feels better when I open it up. And this is the person that you're going to go, hey buddy, like, should we try and just go, right? But like, this is for you to figure out. And two people who are in the same class are going to need different adjustments. So for someone to come to you at this incredibly vulnerable point as well, but this could even just be personality wise. I know, just knowing you, right? You're someone like, you're going to push too hard probably because, undefined heart.
No.
you're like,
no.
Worry about yourself.
Never happened.
You know what I'm saying, right? Like, it's always that worth piece. I have an undefined heart as well. Like this is not just me like making some sort of diagnosis. Like I know what this is like. We're always like, oh, should I do more? And then, I think it's important for someone who's in that position to be able to go, this is not someone I need to push right now. Like this is one of the best lessons that I have received before I even had a business. And I continue to.
Yes, no, it's absolutely true. I feel that's also why so many people are disappointed with group programs or masterminds in particular, right? Because they join someone who had a way that was successful for them. And that is great. But in my experience, a lot of those people cannot teach that. That is sometimes because, I don't know, they have never reflected deeply about their work, or they have not any kind of teaching people skills that are kind of required to see what another person is needing. So I feel so be aware of that if you're joining a program. Why and how it's delivered.
So here's something else I'm really curious about. You just talked about it a little bit. You're a mother, you're a wife, you're a business owner, you're a podcast host, so many different hats, so many different roles. Also no motors to find in human design. I don't want to ask the question, how do you do it all? But like, I'm wondering the distinction, because I know people have different types of flows? Like, do you kind of just flow with the different roles, or do you have a clear structure where you're like, Monday morning is like my business day, and then I'm like mommy for the rest of the afternoon, and I do it this way? Or how does that best work out for you?
I'd say it's a mix of both. Some by design, some just because otherwise we would not be functioning at all. Like, I mean, some structures are given, like kita. So my kid, he goes to daycare 3 days a week. So those days are fixed. We cannot swap them, whatever. So I know my day with the kid is Monday. So all my clients know Monday, I'm not available. And my partner, he has 1 day with the kid too, some Wednesdays. So those are kind of like the fixed structures. And however I kind of like fill these days, then the rest of the days is pretty much flowy, I'd say. I learned to be at peace with, I know there will be days, weeks, string of weeks where I'm like, nope. Oh, there's a new Netflix season. Gotta watch it.
Wait. What are you watching these days? This was actually the question I was going to ask.
I know. I was really kind of like, I'm really out of ideas at the moment. So
Have you watched Bad Sisters?
No, I haven't yet. I
haven't. What is the question?
I know, but did you stream it? Or where did you?
Yeah, it's Apple.
Oh, I don't have Apple. I have everything else. Okay, so I gotta get Apple. Okay, I was watching everywhere, and then I also wanted to watch The White Lotus, but it's not available anywhere here.
Sky. On Sky.
Oh, but then I need to get another one. Dear Lord, I already have like 40
the real problem in the modern.
I know, it's hashtag first world problems. But anyway, so I started The Good Doctor. I just started this. I know. The concept sounded quite intriguing.
I just really need you to watch Bad Sisters because I feel like you and I would have a field
day. I was quite intrigued with like the vein and heart medical illustration overlays, but I'm like, I'm not really into them. So, but it was either that or I'm gonna do an entire rerun of X-Files for like the 6th time, where I'm like, okay, I probably should not do that. But no, like. So I came to I made peace with that it just comes in waves. That there are waves where I record 2 podcast episode every evening of every evening of the week. Or there would be waves where I wouldn't do anything at all, or I would do tasks that require a different kind of energy, like my accountant called. I should file all my expenses so she can do like close the year. Or like tasks I can do in my sleep, like, I don't know, creating Pinterest pins designs or something like that, where I'm just listen to a podcast, I can listen to music and just do a bit of Canva, and it's kind of like
doesn't require your full mental faculty.
Exactly. No. Or then I know, okay, now I really have to do some thinking, or I really have to do some writing or something. And I had to make peace with that. It comes in waves, which is sometimes still not so easy to be at peace, because you're like, I want to go faster, but from experience that is not gonna end well. So part knowing yourself, knowing how you work best, part structure, and then part support. We do a lot of there's never ever any real equality. It's also not really the goal, I suppose, but we share parenting. Mental load still real, but we try to really balance as much as we can. yeah, and I mean, I outsource things in my business that I don't want to do. Like, I got an accountant. I have a podcast editor who does all the editing and all of that, because I don't know when I would do that, and also don't really care about that. And I got a cleaning lady, like, who helps us keep everything more or less neat and tidy here.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah, you gotta, it's give or take, right? Like you have to make those decisions somewhere.
yeah, and with every decision, there comes, I don't know, there comes responsibility and some guilt and some like, oh, but is this really like, is this real like fuck the patriarchy feminism if I just outsource cleaning to someone who is lesser paid than I am? It's good times living in my head sometimes, but then I'm like, okay, I think I pay her fairly. She's happy, so okay, I think I get to be happy too. But like, I feel all these questions are come up and they're valid. Kind of like they have to decide, okay, what is more important
Well, because
in
you're
this season?
finite. Like it's kind of like what you said with, you have a podcast editor. These are not tasks that require you to do them. Whereas, as you said before, when we were talking about branding, like there's going to be certain things that you need to do that you cannot outsource.
Yeah.
What are those things? Like you want to be present for your child. These are not things you want to outsource. So
and I mean, we have it outsourced to some extent, right? Like, I mean, he's in Kita. Yeah. But no, I get it, right? And I mean, I and also like I remember like he started keto when he was like 6 months old or 7 months old, and he first went to keto only like 2 days, and I had 2 days, and I was like, oh, I'm not really cut out for that.
In what way? Like, was it too much or too little?
Both. It's physically extremely draining and mentally absolutely fucking boring at the beginning. Now it's a different ball game, but at the beginning, it's just it's not mentally very challenging.
Yeah,
it's challenging because you're exhausted. You have, I don't know, you're sore. You're recovering from birth, whatever. Like, whole load of challenges, but mental stimulation,
not happening.
Not so much. Which is cool, right? Like, otherwise it probably would go really in overdrive. But
this is also not when you're going to be reading like Tolstoy as your this is not that
but then again, are you ever? I mean, Tolstoy is, I mean, there are so many good Russian novels. Like, try Gogol, but why would you go for I tried. I really tried, because I mean, Krieg und Frieden, where like Anna Karenina, everyone should. But I'm like, no, I really tried. And I mean that some of the classics, if you know they're not for you, then that's cool.
You just move on.
Yeah, and I mean the same goes for like James Joyce. The short stories, loved them. The Dubliner? Seriously? It's like 400 pages that describe one day. One day.
I kind of like that concept, I have to say. It's kind of like, before sunrise and before sunset. It's like the whole movie. That's like one.
I thought it intriguing too, but when you're reading it, it's.
Yeah, and it's taking.
It's the same, like, love. This is not probably bring me a lot of hate. Loved the Hobbit movies, the books. I had such a hard time. I was like, no, dragging on forever.
That's why we have the movies. There are certain things that you don't have to. You don't have to do.
Yeah.
Tell us. I feel like I might know this about you, but I'm also willing to be surprised. Tell us an audacious dream that you've got for yourself. Let's say kind of like a 5 to 10 year timeline, if you're willing to share.
A dream I have of myself for the next 5 to 10 years. I actually would share if I'd know.
Don't you have? Should I
No,
tell you
no,
what I think? Should I tell you
not
what I think your dream is?
please enlighten me. I'm always happy if someone else decides that for me. No, but like, I mean, there are certain things I really want to uh, do, or like who are on, let's say, my vision board.
Yeah.
But I'm really like, I don't know. I'm running contrary to the whole, and maybe that's something I should work on. But all the Q1, the Q1 planning, Q2 planning, whatever. I do one post-it per quarter. That's what I want to do. Not more, because you're not getting done more anyway.
Oh my God, you're just
And
set yourself up for failure. And
yeah,
then you're like, oh, look at
yeah.
all these things I've miserably failed.
So like the Q2 post-it of 2022 was just like launch Scenic Route podcast. I mean, what would I do anything else, right? Like,
I meant more like in terms of life though, right? It's not like a business target for you to hit, but like what is something that you envision for yourself next 5 to 10 years that is going to enrich your life?
I don't know. I definitely see us see me and my family going kind of like doing kind of like the camper life maybe for like 6 months or so, because I feel that would be really fun. I'm also I don't know, always kind of torn between like, we should all just like move to fucking Ireland and like
That's what I had. That was what
yes,
but
but
a house
no,
in Ireland or a castle.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
watching so much
yeah, no.
noise.
I'd rather have like an old but beautifully modernized cottage.
Yeah.
And yes, they're on my vision board, and I mean, I also know I know one property that's for sale since like I don't know 2012 or something. I'm always like, oh, it's still for sale. But like, yeah, but I don't know. I'm not sure it if this is the season. And this is where my dreamer meets like my hands-on approach me. Like also because I lived in Ireland for a time. I do not have like purely romanticized goggles of Ireland.
Yeah.
So I know if we would move there now, so that would mean what I'm going to do with Finn. There's no fucking way I'm sending him to a Catholic school. So that means in Ireland, I can send him to a Catholic school or and Scola is Gaelge, so an all Irish school, which I don't know. And my Irish is pretty so why should I send him to an Irish school if I cannot talk at all? So those kind of things. And also like and that gets kind of like a dark hint, like medical history wise. I know when I got diagnosed with endometriosis last year, finally, after 20 years of like, maybe you should just try some yoga. I had my surgery within 4 months. I know people in Ireland who have been diagnosed like 8 years ago and they're still kind of waiting.
They're still waiting.
Just kind of like all those things where I'm like, ooh,
grateful.
And we're still figuring out some of all my medical shit. And I mean, I know already here, I like just this week, I got 3 letters to see specialists at different clinics in Bern, Basel, and Zurich. And they all have wait lists for 4 to 7 months.
Yeah.
And that is here in Switzerland, where we have a great fucking healthcare system. So just all of that, I'm not sure if this is the time, if the season is right. And there were times where I don't know, that would really make me feel sad. And now I'm like, yeah, it would be nice. It's still, I'm not saying never, but also there's a certain peace that came with not now. for very good reasons.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. Like, just in general as a concept, the not now, like making the decision once, it just removes it from taking up headspace and taking up energy.
Because it would always be like, shouldn't I?
Should I like keep looking at listings for real estate online, or like this is taking up a lot of mental energy. Whereas if you can make the decision once, you're like, actually not right now, let's put this aside, might revisit in 5 years. Then it's like, okay, I no longer have to worry about this. This decision has been made. I do this, I kind of use this approach for business a lot, where I'm like, I do this this way, and then you have a standard operating procedure. And like, I made this decision a long time ago. Like,
I can reevaluate it, but okay, parameters still the same. Okay, same conclusion.
Super helpful.
But I mean, speaking of real estate listings, are you checking London real estate now? Because I see you hopping to London every other week.
Back and I'm like, forth. It's the perfect. Here's what I will say. It's the perfect little cocktail mix for me to have home and to have London sprinkled in between, because I've got my big city life. Like, I'll go out.
It's always good to have London, baby.
I mean, what's that quote? If you're tired of London, you're tired of life, right? Like,
yes,
it is
so true. Yeah, I have the best time. It's,
my parents met in London in the 80s. That's where they met and love. So it feels like home in a way. And
that's so precious.
I'm there. Love it. Moving on. Not talking about me. Moving swiftly along. Here's a question.
See, I'm a sneaky bitch.
You're gonna have to invite me back if you want more intelligence. No, we'll just.
Okay, I'll pay for coffee and then
we'll just. That's what I was gonna say. We'll just stop recording and then we'll chat. So if you were not doing what you're doing in business, what else do you think you'd be doing? Is there like an alternate reality, Jen? Like, what's she doing? What's she up to?
Oh, I don't know. I could see myself doing loads of things. Partly because I probably also am doing loads of things. I don't know. I probably, I don't know. I wouldn't be in corporate, or maybe I would be in corporate, but then I don't know. I probably would have never done all the healing, and then I would still like it, or I would have done all the healing I did, and then it would be fucking miserable.
You're like, so this is great. I thrive here.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know. I was never like, I'm not saying I'll never go back to corporate, or I could never see myself, but it would really need to be a very, very specific kind of company that I know I can work with, because the traditional Swiss KMU ain't it. Yeah. Like, nope, they're not. Yeah, no. I don't know. I don't know what I'd be doing. Maybe I would be teaching.
Tell me more.
I would be teaching. I mean, my partner is a teacher.
Is he?
Yes, he is. So maybe I would teach. Maybe I would teach like primary school or something. Not kindergarten, because that'd be too much crafting and I'm not like, but maybe I would teach. I could totally see myself doing that. Or I sometimes, like, when I'm on my wild daydreams, I feel still like, how old is too old to start like studying medicine to become a doctor?
You can still do it.
Yeah, I'm like, when am I too old to actually become like?
Is that fueled by you watching The Good Doctor? Because you know how that happens. Like, you watch a show.
Yeah, I know. No, I mean, not The Good Doctor, but definitely started it definitely came up when I was watching House back in the days. No, but just, I don't know, because certain things come easy to me, right? Yeah. Like I don't have any issues with, for example, seeing blood or anything. Yeah. I'm in super high focus mode when there's like a medical emergency. I'm like, talk.
You feel like a good surgeon, is what you're saying.
Well, surgeon, maybe not, because I don't know. I feel like I'm rather clumsy, but surely like a good kind of like general GP, maybe. Yeah. And my big benefit would be I actually have the communication skills to be a doctor. I don't know. So that's also still something I'm like, oh, not something I'm gonna pursue, but I could see maybe that would be or I once had a teacher tell me I would make a really good lawyer, which probably, but I don't know. Could see that to be true though. But it was never that interesting to me, that appealing to me.
So,
or I just sell my home brewed kombucha. Like, I mean, I don't know. Or maybe because or writing a novel. That's also something
that you can still do. That's not an alternate life. Wait, do you make your own kombucha, or is that like
no? No, I don't make my own kombucha. I once tried though. I once got like the entire fucking set. But then I realized it's just really a lot. And I had this Scooby, and it was just like, now it's standing there for like God knows how long, and like
you also don't want to like accidentally poison your family. Yeah,
I know. Don't want to do that. No, but I mean, and also now, before I had a kid, I had a food blog. It's still up. It was fairly successful. I don't know, whatever that means, but it was quite fun. I did.
What was your most loved recipe?
I started just having a baking blog, and then I started to become like a gluten-free and vegan baking blog. And I have like a really great chocolate cake recipe and a really
Are you
great
gluten-free and vegan?
Sorry?
Are you gluten-free and vegan?
I was vegan. And then that's the fucking irony of it all. I had a vegan and gluten-free baking blog. And then years later, I got diagnosed with celiacs. So I actually know that I cannot eat gluten. So I kind of came out of the vegan.
Good thing I've got some banging recipes.
Yeah, now feeling like short on time, but it's still up. It's misswalters.com. Well, anyway, it's kind of like, now I feel like I'm not necessarily having the time to do all of that, and it's just okay. It's okay. Like, it is what it is. Not really, but Dad, how did we started talking?
Because I asked you about your alternate reality.
Oh yeah. Yeah. See, like I've already been through the food blogger phase.
Have lived so many lives.
Yeah. So.
One thing I remember, I don't know if this is what we talked about on the air in our last podcast that we recorded together, or maybe we just chatted about it off the air because there was a lot of chatting, I remember. But one thing that I think is so fun, super fun to get to know you better, but also in the realm that you and I work in, I think it's important too. Like, when I think of the people that I want to work with, yes, I want to work with the most competent, but I also want to work with people I like, like that,
Yeah, ultimately, this is
ideal. Yeah. And I feel like from that past conversation we've had, we both share that, right? Like it's nice to be able to get to know people better. So I just have a couple of fun questions to round out this conversation, just so people get to know you, just kind of like the fun angle. Like, you don't have to, there's nothing to deliver. We're not talking about branding anymore. Like, you don't need to be, there's nothing you need to. I mean, you kind of knew I was going to ask this because I feel like we've talked about it before, but give us your celebrity crush.
Ooh. Okay. My female celebrity crush is Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Is it? Okay. Any particular movie? Any performance you like?
Stranger Than Fiction.
Stranger Than Fiction.
That movie where he comes
with the flowers. I brought you flowers.
And it's the best movie scene of all time.
It's a good scene.
And obviously I also liked her in The Secretary.
Yes, Secretary was a good movie as well.
No, I don't know. I feel we would vibe.
Yeah.
Other celebrity crush might not be super popular. But fun fact, not popular, he's not very well known, I suppose, maybe. But fun thing, male celebrity crush that I share with my partner.
Tell us.
Nathan Gray. He is the singer of kind of like a punk rock band called Boy Sets Fire. He's fine.
Okay. Gonna look
fine.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Let me think. When I was younger, it was Josh Hartnett.
Yeah, I feel like.
I mean, we grew up like.
Yeah,
I mean, that was the time, right?
Like,
the faculty, we were all like, oh my god. Oh, and way before that, it was Jonathan Brandis.
Who is that?
From Sequest, I think.
I don't know.
A kind of blonde guy. And then, of course, as almost everyone who wasn't into the Backstreet Boys, it was Patrick Kelly. When I was like 12.
Oh, you have the posters and everything.
Yes, I had the posters, and it was my second concert that I went to see live. The second concert I went to see live was something Kelly family. Yeah, it was the Kelly family at the Hollandstadion in Zurich.
Wow.
Yes, and now my first one.
What was
might
it?
Come as a bit surprised because it's quite a swift. Was the Beastie Boys?
Oh wow! Well, how old were you?
I don't know. I was really super young, and I was just
10-year-old
able to go because my friend, her older sister and her older brother were going, and we kind of just, I don't know, got the agreement to tag along. I don't know.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then, of course, the Kelly family, which was amazing. For like, I don't know how old I was, but I think An Angel was a vibe.
Oh God. You know what my first concert was Britney Spears.
Oh yes. Hit me baby
time. It was a good time. It was a good time. Okay. I have this game. I feel like I've posted about this maybe on Projectors Invited, but it's kind of like a get to know each other game, super fun for dates. And I picked at random, I picked a couple questions. So we're going to round out the conversation with this. What is a compliment you wish you received more frequently? I love this question because it kind of makes you think like
deep.
I wish like people knew and appreciated this about me more. What would that be?
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, this deep.
It's good, right?
Dear Lord. Ooh. I'm actually marinating this. I wish I would hear more. This is
Makes you think, eh?
Yeah, it does. And like to some extent it makes me think because the people I hold dearly tell me what they appreciate about me on a regular basis. So I'm feeling very grateful for that. So I think one of the things that I would like to hear more, which is also I'm kind of like, it's my fault I'm not hearing it more often. It's kind of like the whole centered around the thing of, oh, I see what you're doing. I know it's enough, and I know it's hard, or it's like a lot. And that's also because of my part, because I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do that, no problem.
You make it look easy. Like you don't
let so they're actually not even getting the chance to say it. So I also have to I have to marinate on this.
Yeah, that's a good answer. What title would you give this particular chapter in your life that you're in right now?
Right now, super hard, I'd call it the mother wound.
Ooh.
Yeah. There is currently a lot of deep shit that's going on with my mom. And that's gonna fill another entire other podcast conversation. But yeah, there's a lot of healing in that. Yeah, the mother wound.
Okay. Wow. And the last question, and this is just a really fun one. But before I ask this, tell me first, were you on MySpace back in the day?
Question is that? Of course, I was on MySpace. I was one of the cool kids.
Or like, I was MySpace. Okay, here's the question.
Well, no, but I mean, I learned coding on MySpace because I wanted to have those glittery backgrounds.
Oh, of course, and you had to code the song on there. So if MySpace were still a thing, what would your profile song be?
Ooh.
Or alternatively, what was your profile song, if you remember?
Oh, that I really don't remember.
You don't remember?
No, do you? Like, do you really remember what? Oh, shit.
Yeah. Mine was Paolo Conte Via Con Me. I'm just like a patriotic Italian. I just
Fair enough. Well, I mean, I had a phase where I probably also would have been something Laura Pausini, but I mean,
or Beastie Boys.
Yeah, or it would probably would be some. It would have been probably. Oh, there was a phase where it for sure would have been Tra te e il mare, for sure.
Oh yes.
But now, if I now, I think now it would be, how's it? I know the lyrics of like almost every song, every 5-second song I hear, but when it comes to the names, I think.
Are you consulting your Spotify?
Yeah, I am. Okay. Oh yeah. This is one I'm now seeing as like top played, which I probably which would be like branding wise, this would be like my MySpace song.
Okay.
Like branding wise, it would be Anti-Hero from Taylor Swift.
Love it. I was going to say it's got to be Taylor Swift. No, yeah.
It would be Anti-Hero. Like branding wise, that would just be like, oh, that would make a good brand. But if it would be just a song that I would be like, every time I would log on to MySpace and I would be like, oh yeah. It would be I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel by Nina Simone.
Oh, okay. Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I feel like that gave us a good round like overview of who is JW.
Yeah, surely from like the musical evolution.
But also just the entire conversation. Like we've covered a lot of ground. Thank you so much for being a really good sport. I also want to reiterate, if people don't know this, but like Jennifer did not like, she just gave me absolute free reign. And I remember asking in the beginning, I was like, is there anything you like totally don't want me to touch on? Anything she's like, no, I'm good. Like you're totally, easygoing and open. And I really appreciate it. It makes it really fun for the interviewer. And thank you again so much for having me and trusting me with this. I super enjoyed getting to know a couple of things about you that I didn't know yet. And we're so thankful to you for putting your love and your energy and your time into this podcast for us to listen to and to enjoy.
Thank you so much, Nadia, for being on board with all the crazy that came out. I love it. I'm always it's always like when people match your speed, and I'm like, yes, okay, good, let's go. Loving this. Thank you so much for taking the time to look back on the Scenic Route podcast so far, and I'm sure we bring you back for season 4 or something whenever. So again, also a big thank you from my side. Thank you.